abundance of information thrown at you every time you scroll down your phone. And oftentimes they're the opposite of the last post.
Yeah.
And then you're just sitting there, and the average person doesn't have a health or nutrition background. So they're looking at all these things. And because biohacking, you got Brian Johnson doing the whole blueprint thing, and you got all these people doing all these things trying to influence their perception of that they need to now do it. And it's kind of a tricky place to be. And the other side of that, man, is like the financial incentives these companies have to push their products and then to create a narrative is not something that we should be overlooked.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you talk about people who have an entire website about a certain product and then their entire personality is that product. There has to be a correlating reason as to why they're that way. Most people aren't just inherently trying to sell things to people for no reason.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to ALLSMITH, to another episode where we forge mental, physical, and emotional resilience one conversation at a time. Today's guest is someone who lives at the intersection of science, movement, and deep human connection. He and I have a past. We have a connection through basketball, and he's a doctor of physical therapy, a lifelong mover, and a true student of the body, who's one of the most dialed in practitioners that I know. I'm pumped to have him in studio today, Dr. Kyle Olandt. Welcome to the show, man.
Appreciate you, Bryce. Dan, that was the introduction of a lifetime, dude. I need to put that on my resume.
Dude.
I'll write that down for sure.
I've got more. I butchered the hell out of that just because it's sometimes weird within the human experience. Like, we feel like we're doing nothing, especially when we play this hierarchy comparison game to kind of echo Jordan Peterson. But it's like, dude, you've done a lot. You've done some really cool things in your life, and you're continuing to like have an upward trajectory. And so I think it's really important. I used to like pre-record intros, but I actually think it's really important. Like, I want the guest to feel that love. And so you deserve every word that was spoken. And I don't know. I hope that's well received.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. Dude, I'm proud of what you're doing. This is rad. I think taking a leap to put yourself to be vulnerable in a podcast space where you're expressing all the things that people would like to know about you, but maybe don't need to, or are curious, but you're nervous to say those things. That's a big thing to me. I've only done, this is like my third podcast now, but it's such a cool thing just to kind of connect with people on a real level, and to get after kind of what got you to this point and what your goals are and how all the things leading up to that point got you right here. You know?
Totally, man. Sure. I mean, I have to echo what you said. Like, I really received that and I appreciate it. The podcast space is funny, man, because it's like, I don't know, you're learning on the fly. There's not really like prerequisites, but there's also like, you can fuck it up really fast. You get criticized nonstop. Sometimes you get some positive feedback, but like the human mind is kind of conditioned to like, oh, this is the negative. Let me grab onto that. Let me like throw some shade, which is Twitter culture. It's social media culture. It's clickbait culture. But when you get past that, and you think less about REEL and more about REAL, you're kind of like, whoa, like this is actually really freaking cool to like sit down in this space. Like, you and I have, a little bit of a childhood connection, and like to sit here and have a cool conversation of like, who did we become from when we last saw each other? I don't know. Something about that is like really freaking cool. And there's no like monetary component or success or whatever associated with that. It's like, human connection is fucking dope, and maybe that's why we're here, right? And like, it's to echo Rogan, we're these meat suits floating around on this rock thing around this like ball of fire.
It's right, dude. The human life is such a crazy like thought that we are here. Like, if you were to throw me back in 6th grade and we were playing against each other at Taft High School or any of the
Pierce College, man.
College, dude.
The hottest gym ever.
Dude, the hottest gym. Birmingham High School, like totally. 500 degrees in the summertime. To be like, hey, by the way, dude, in 20 years from now, you guys are both going to be sitting in San Diego chopping it up about God knows what. Like, that's a crazy thing, crazy idea. And I saw like Lauren Jackson's on your show. Yep. And we still talk to Dallas, like quite a few guys that we grew up playing with. And just to see everyone's different paths, everyone's succeeding to a degree. And it's such a cool thing to see, like, people's aspirations coming together, and yeah, it's rad, man, for sure.
Totally, dude. It's funny you mentioned those guys. I mean, Lauren Jackson was a stud at Simi Valley High School when we were coming up.
Yep.
Dallas Rutherford played on my AAU team in like middle school, and then later played alongside Drew Holiday in high school for a little bit. Now he co-hosts with Paul George on the podcast or the what is it, the podcast P?
Yeah, PG podcast, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
They're taking a little break right now so he can focus on his NBA career, which totally makes sense. But before we jump into your story, man, like let's actually touch on that because people don't really get it. Like growing up, dude, inner city of LA, especially if you played AAU basketball and you're in Vegas like every other week, not to mention like our parents were rock stars, right? Like how annoying is it to have them drive us? So one day it's Pierce College, then we're out to Westlake, and then it's like freaking Locke High School in the middle of LA. Then you're going to Vegas,
Oxnard,
Oxnard.
Yeah.
And it's just like, fuck, man, like that travel for AAU just to try to make it in a sport that like lights your kid's heart on fire. Our parents were studs, man.
Oh, dude, my mom drove me to the inner city of LA to practice with various teams. Like, looking back at that, thinking about if I had 4 or 5 kids right now, trying to get them to all their activities, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I look at these parents who have 4 to 5 kids nowadays, like, not only the expense is wild,
Mm-hmm.
but to get all these kids to their practices at the right time and to carpool and to coordinate, like, what a great opportunity we had, because there's so much growth that happens in those experiences, riding in the car with your parents to those long rides or those long games. And yeah, man, just so thankful for our parents to be able to give us that opportunity.
Totally.
I mean, so much, you can learn so much from sports. Esports, I think, it's such a big part of every kid's development.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer and proponent of group sports.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I think there's so many trials and tribulations you go through and you learn and connections you develop, also from diversity, different ethnic backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you and I were with some of the few white kids on the team.
Yeah.
You know, and to being able to really, that's come full circle for me because I'm in Orange County right now, dude. Like, that's a very white, affluent area, but that's not how I grew up. I grew up, even though I grew up in like Thousand Oaks, Orange County, or Westlake Village, but my parents did not have much means.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be able to relate to those demographics now coming into my practice, driving from various areas, kind of completes the loop in a lot of ways.
Yeah, totally, man. That's a really good observation. It also goes to show like you have like a swaggy culture to you. You dress well, got some tattoos, you got the good hair, you got a good look, like but that's part of it, right? Like you think about like Tupac, you think about Biggie, you think about like hip hop culture. Some of that comes from basketball. I mean, both of us are into shoe game, right? Like it's fun to like play with shoes. Like that's a basketball thing.
Totally.
Like all these things kind of evolve through experience. Mm-hmm. And if you're just like sitting on the couch playing video games or sitting on your iPad as a kid, you don't really have that exposure because you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And I think, like you said, like the exposure to affluent areas, you know, poorer areas, tough experiences, understanding that like, oh man, that guy's really physical. Oh, now I understand. He comes from a single parent household. They're living in a 1-bedroom apartment. There's 4 people living in there, 5 people living in there. No wonder, like this is his ticket out.
Right.
And like, you know, when you start to learn and understand that, like your why gets deeper and you better understand, like, how do I execute with this sport that could be my ticket to providing for my family, getting a college scholarship, having some level of success that maybe before had never been seen in a family dynamic or legacy before.
Yeah, I mean, I work with a couple of guys that are transfers from different parts of the country to JSerra, 2 of which have a good chance of getting to the league. Mm-hmm. But you see that paradigm where like they come from very, very low means and they've looked at this kid as the way out. Mm-hmm. And the pressures that are put on him are pretty substantial, man. Like I watched him kind of go through these waves during the season where like emotionally he was like beat down, burnt out. Like he might have a bad game against, let's just say he plays against Harvard Westlake, but they got some big guys this year.
Oh yeah.
I think they have 4 or 5 guys going D1.
Yeah. I'm good friends with David Rabibo, who's their head coach.
Got it. Yeah. So they got the one guy going to Duke. They got a couple other guys that are big time players.
Yep.
And you play poorly against that game. Next thing you know, you're shooting yourself in the foot because now your entire pressure of helping your family is gone.
100%.
You know, and yeah, it's.
I want to touch on that a little bit for people that don't understand. Alluding to what I was referencing prior. Inner city of LA, man. I mean, we look at the NBA now. It's like you and I played against Russell Westbrook, DeMar DeRozan. I mean, we got to play a little bit against John Wall from the East Coast. Paul George.
Yeah. Drew Holiday.
Drew Holiday's who's in the league now. Greg Smith played for the Houston Rockets for a little bit. He's a pump and run guy. Justin Holiday, another one that we played against. And then it's like James Harden was from the inner city of LA.
Yeah, DeMar, Brandon Jennings, like all these
Brandon
guys.
Jennings, he's another one.
The same AU team, some of these guys too.
Yeah.
I'm playing against DeMar DeRozan and Brandon Jennings in 8th grade, and I watched Brandon Jennings throw a half-court lob to DeMar right off the tip. Just threw down a dunk in 8th grade. I'm like, 4 feet tall, being like,
Yeah.
what the hell's happening right now?
Yeah,
You know?
like those guys were evolving to the point where it was incredible. I also think to this day, I want to chop it up on this and like Brandon, I want to get you on the show. I've been seeing what he's been doing with Nick Young and Gilbert Arenas. I mean, you look at Gilbert Arenas' son right now at Chatsworth, like just lighting it up.
Yeah.
Trevor Ariza's son, who's also playing at Westchester. But it's like, dude, Brandon Jennings was the best player I ever played against.
Oh, by far.
And what's crazy is like at that time, unless your parents had like a video camera, nobody had a highlight reel unless you were fucking legit. It was like Brandon Jennings, Drew Holiday, and Larry Drew that all had highlight reels from like, whoever. So scout.com or all these different people, Ball is Life.
Yeah.
But it's like to this day, I mean, if he didn't tear his Achilles,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like he had a 50 ball a couple times with the Milwaukee Bucks, but like that dude, what he did with the SoCal All-Stars with Compton Dominguez, and then later on the East Coast, and then becoming a McDonald's All-American, like, holy shit, nobody gets it, man.
Yeah. He's super skilled. Like crazy game. Lefty crossover, lefty so smooth and silky. I actually did have a clip of me playing against him in 8th grade. Him, Ari Allen, I think DeMar's on the team. I want to say Malik Story might be on that team.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
Yeah.
Where did he end up playing?
He went to Arizona State, I want to
Okay.
say. And then I'm not sure what happened to that.
Isn't that crazy how like some of these guys are so unreal, and then all of a sudden you get to college and like they phase out a little bit.
Dude, yeah, big time. And you got guys like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard who were big time players in high school to a degree, but not expected to be where they're at now.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
It really goes to show like two things come to mind. A, belief, right? Like having either parents or coaches that actually believe in you and like give you the keys to be like, hey, go make mistakes. I mean, I argue often like, is Steph Curry without Steve Kerr? Without Mark Jackson, really, like if those guys didn't get to play for a coach that gave them that freedom and flexibility to then be like, hey, go make mistakes, go take what the world thinks is awful shots right now, but we're actually going to change the culture of the game. You look now, the moment Steph Curry crosses half court, he's a threat.
Yeah, 100%.
And there's a few other guys that are now like that. Trae Young, a couple other guys that kind of play a game that, lights our heart on fire because we were 3-point shooters for sure.
Can you imagine having that kind of freedom, though? I was thinking about that. Like, I played for really authoritative coaches. Like yeah, Kyle, I meant to turn over the ball. No, of course not. Like, I don't need to be yelled at to this degree. And I think with the wrong personality type, man, that kind of coaching style is really poor.
I agree.
It really just ruins someone's confidence, I think, big time. And Steph had the opposite. Do whatever you want. Who cares if you pull it from a step back from half court? Who cares? And that's just uncanny to me to think that actually exists back in playing where you're like you did not have any of those freedoms.
Yeah, what comes to mind there is our education system of like, hey, we're seeing the deconstruction of that now. Who knows if college is going to be around long term, but it's like you look at like a traditional system, it's like get the best shot, wind down the shot clock, play within the system. I'm going to control you, be a fucking robot. Why? Because that worked back in the day. Shooting this far, the percentage rates, everybody wants to look at analytics. But I'm a huge believer in like, hey, everything that's measured doesn't always count. Everything that counts isn't always measured. Like there's artistry, there's poetry in motion. You fucking watch Kyrie Irving.
Yep.
It's like a lot of the stuff that's going down was like innovative over the course of time and pushing the boundaries and seeking edges. And that is the evolution, not just of basketball, but of humans. And what's so interesting is like, by mitigating that, like if you think differently, like, hey, I can make it from here. You might miss the first 100 times, but all of a sudden that box gets checked and you're starting to like do something that's never been done before. But because it doesn't land on the perception of somebody, everybody thinks perception is reality. But I actually think perspective is more important than perception. Because if you believe something is possible and you start to execute that, now you have a stack of evidence over the course of time that this is going to be the future of the game. And now it's like big guys are out.
Yeah.
Now it's pick and roll basketball. Everybody's spreading the floor. I mean, you have some 1-4 flats, but for the most part, like if a big guy can't shoot a three and be as skilled as like Jokic and Joel Embiid, like you don't have a spot on the team anymore unless you're blocking shots and like really helping out defensively, like Dwight Howard back in the day.
Right. I just think the evolution of athletics has been crazy to see too. Like some of these guys nowadays, the amount of force they produce through the ground, the vertical abilities that they can do, like Ja Morant, like these guys are just such superior athletes than maybe 15, 25 years ago. And I think that elevated the game to such a degree because, like you said, the artistry and the poetry and the innovation of certain movements are now reflective with their athleticism. and then you get the freedom to do whatever you want because you have now, you know, more just green lights, I guess you could call them. So to me, like the poetry and the artistry is actually directly related to physical therapy, because physical therapy is a science-based field. It's a medical practice in theory, right? But there are a lot of nuances that go on to patient care. Like you might have a horrible sleep night. You may be going through a breakup. You may have lost a family member. Those things are dramatically impactful to your perception of pain, to your ability to move, to your willingness to move. And so I think that's where like navigating those hard conversations and navigating the interpersonality of the person is such a big part of our field. And I think that's sometimes overlooked.
I love that you say that, because something that I talk about often is that I coach the human first, right? Like science has a place for sure, but it's like if I create this beautiful squat program on a Sunday, but my client or my patient is playing ice hockey and they get smacked by a puck in their oblique, and then all of a sudden they get like run into, and there's, you know, valgus of the knee and their MCL's bothering them when they come in. Is that squat program really relevant when they come in on a Monday? Right. Like that's like fitting a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah.
So it's important to be like, hey, how are you? How was your weekend?
Yeah.
What are the peaks and valleys of how your body's feeling right now? And having like an in-person patient intake, not, hey, I filled out this questionnaire 7 days ago. Now you have that as a reference point. Traditional Western medicine is, you know, each doctor has this many patients, thousands of patients. And it's like, hey, Kyle, I'm going to spend, 7 minutes with you. Oh, you have medial knee pain? Cool. Here's some Oxycontin to kind of manage that pain. We're not going to talk about like mobility. We're not going to talk about lifestyle. We're not going to talk about all these things. Instead, we're just going to make the pain go away. And then, you can send us an email and we can schedule another appointment in 2 weeks, either to refill that prescription, or, we can have a basic consult in which I'm then going to assign physical therapy, which you have to do before you're scheduled for an MRI or something else, or seeing an orthopedic specialist. And then as a byproduct, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like now they're addicted to pain meds. They haven't done anything that's as far as like motor learning or understanding like actual capacity of like the joint. They're told to rest. So they literally do nothing, start gaining weight. Then what you and I talked about offline, psychosomatically, there's depression, there's lack of freedom, there's frustration, there's not seeing light at the end of the tunnel. So now you're chasing an altered state of consciousness. You're eating bad food, you're drinking, you're probably doing things like just binge watching things to try not to think about the injury.
Yeah.
You can just see the downward spiral of health and wellness now. And this is a system issue. I don't blame the doctors or the healthcare practitioners because they're just a part of the system.
100%, dude. That's exactly why I created the business I have. So our business is out of network. We're one-on-one for a full hour. We don't see 3 patients an hour running around. I don't have assistants. So there's no young 18, 19-year-old kids that are wanting hours to put, like we were back in the day trying to
PT aids, man.
Exactly. We don't have those because the quality of care is never diluted to somebody else that's not part of the plan of care. And when you treat in a certain way, you get way better outcomes real quick. You're able to get into the weeds of like what's actually this person's makeup. Like, is their hip pain really truly like a gluteal tendinopathy, or is this like synonymous with the same time their mom died and the same time they had a catastrophic life change, and then so happens that they had the injury, and then that injury spiraled into so many different things.
That sheer curiosity though is beautiful. Like the fact that you even think about that though, like most people are like, oh, that doesn't fit with this correlational study or this whatever. It's like you're taking into consideration like the totality of what's going on in their life, which is so important.
I think you have to, man. And there's so much evidence that looks at like you can be a horrible manual therapist. You can have no idea what you're doing with your hands, but if you get that person to like you, they actually get better faster than someone who's really good with their hands. So the best chiropractor in the world can manipulate you, but if like somebody like, with decent skills, but also is a great human being, great connecting, great, like an unbelievable friend type thing, that patient gets better faster than the other one.
Because there's probably decreased level of like, I need to protect myself and keep you away.
Dude, yeah.
And more like, it's more parasympathetic where they can get to rest and digest and they trust.
It's the trust, dude. That's really
and
what it is.
And now that trust and buy-in creates manipulation of the tissue to then create healing.
And then just reduced apprehension, like you're able to now, it's okay to go down a stair. Your knee may hurt a little bit, but that's okay. Like having those conversations where this is just a little piece of cartilage just slightly worn off, but your kneecap's not exploding. Whereas you go to the wrong practitioner and they're like, oh yeah, your kneecap's end-stage arthritis. You should probably never squat again. You have this paradigm of like people who really want to be optimistic and positive. And then you have these like fear-mongering groups, which is oftentimes just burnout, too much volume, overload of work, and then just like not enough like patience anymore to really care about what they're doing. And that's what you mentioned, like the medical system, like it's flawed because practitioners are way overworked. I mean, I know a doctor at Kaiser, I think he sees 60 people in a day.
Oh my gosh.
They're booked every 5 minutes. So like 5 minutes, you're just now telling me about like how you might have hurt your knee pain. I'm like, yeah, you know what? PT might be good. Here's an MCL, maybe injury. Let them figure it out.
Yeah.
And then you go to that same practitioner in the same building and they spend 20 minutes with you or an hour or whatever, the first evaluation. But then they say, come back in 3 weeks. Here's an exercise prescription. Here's a handout of exercises. What is the buy-in on that? No one's doing that.
Yeah.
You know? And then you have disuse atrophy, and then you have more apprehension. It's a whole cascade of things. And that for me, that's hard because it makes my field look poor.
Yeah.
It degrades the physical therapy and the wellness space because people have one experience in that model, and then they associate all physical therapy and strength and conditioning with that.
Yeah.
And we're trying to break that mold with what we're doing. We're really trying to be like, okay, this is a boutique upscale service. It is because it's a cash service. Like we bill out of network. There's ways to kind of finagle it, but it's really like you're committing to improving your body, addressing this injury, and then will systemically influence your whole life.
Yeah. What's so interesting about this too, though, is that like when you look at the fear mongering, as you mentioned, associated with healthcare, if you have incentive, you can then predict behavior. And so it's like, if you have to pay health insurance or you get penalized on your taxes, you're going to have health insurance because the fear is associated with, oh, what if I really hurt myself in the gym? What if I get in a car accident? What if X, Y, and Z thing happens? I need to have that health insurance or I could get billed hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't really think I should go to the gym. You know, the old school traditional gym model is like 24-hour fitness, like pay $25 a month. Whether you show up or not, I don't really care as the business owner. Like I just want your monthly thing. And if you cancel your membership, it's going to go up. So you might as well just keep it.
Keep it for life type thing, right?
And it's just like, that doesn't really create incentive because there's no actual buy-in. What I really love about the boutique fitness model and kind of what I do, kind of what you do, kind of what lots of people do out there is the cash model actually creates buy-in because you see the dent in your bank account. And then as a byproduct, you're like, think about like investing in the stock market. If you put $5,000 into Tesla, you're hoping to make $100,000 in 10 years. And so it's like, I just wish the psychology of people switched a little bit to, hey, if I take care of my body now and I do the actions of a morning routine, an evening routine, I understand that like these things are simple. They're basic knowledge. But I won't do them unless I pay Kyle appropriately and his practice appropriately because I just don't have that level of discipline because I've got kids, a job, X, Y, and Z thing. You're paying for accountability, specific instruction, making sure that you're not just handed a pamphlet. You understand the whys and the hows of movement prescription. Those things may change every so often. Now there's, like you said, a model. There's somebody that I call gas, gives a shit about you. You're not just a number in the system. And as a byproduct, you actually create change, which then positively impacts their relationships, their monetary component, their joy, their happiness, their fulfillment. They're a part of a community now because they probably see other patients. They see you guys all the time. It's so many things that are not sold by our culture. And it makes mine and your jobs very difficult because we're trying to deconstruct a system that is flawed and broken, not actually helping people. But then it makes it very difficult to monetize. Yeah.
And as a physical therapist or a healthcare practitioner, a lot of times you go into healthcare because you care about people. And most physicians don't go into medicine because they want to be rich. I mean, if they do that, it's going to be a very unhappy life because the reality of it is that unless you're incredibly skilled entrepreneurially, you're probably not going to be massively wealthy in medicine in America right now. Unless you have a crazy specialty and you're really dialed in that side. So the gratification side of things, of improving people's lives, I think is a big part of what we're doing. But like you said, I mean, for me, the first time I was selling a cash package or selling services was very weird.
I was sure that was difficult for you because they don't teach you that in school.
They don't teach you any of that in school at all. You get very limited business advice or business experience in school. But the biggest thing was like, as a healthcare practitioner, you just want to help someone. Like, I'll help your elbow for free. I don't care. I just want to get you. That's like that's the mentality of a physical therapist a lot of times because they really are just kind of most down to earth people, really just wanting to get people better. And to then be like, okay, wait, I got to pay rent though. And I have employees now and I have taxes and all these things. You're like, I actually have to charge this. And the interesting paradigm in that is that if you charge less money for what you're worth, people actually look at you as being an inferior service in where I live, at least.
Same thing.
It's kind of like, oh, my trainer charges $250. Well, this guy charges $125. The guy is probably not that good at $125. You don't want to price gouge, but it's interesting to see that psychology where it's like, if you even offer something for free sometimes, that's looked down upon as a poor service.
And it's tough because, you know, a lot of this is not even just having to do with your skill set as a practitioner and like really trying to help. That's not seen by the human eye. It's a numerical value. And people think, what am I losing as opposed to what am I getting?
Right.
And I really do think it's a cultural reset. I think RFK is doing a good job of like having some of these things float to the surface of like, hey, like, make America healthy again actually is not a political message. It's like, hey, take care of yourself, eat quality food, like have relationships that matter, move often at a slow pace, lift heavy things every now and then, sprint every now and then.
Right.
Those are very like primal things that actually shouldn't be political at all. That actually will also increase your health biomarkers or make them better, decrease body fat, improve body composition, and more importantly, above all else, simply create awareness.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, notice, how many steps did I take today? Am I putting a ton of sugar in my coffee? Are there food dyes in my food? Am I constantly microwaving things where there's microplastics now that are getting into my system? Oh, my sex drive isn't that good. Maybe all these things are correlating to that. Am I addicted to an altered state of consciousness in the evening and binge watching Netflix, so then I'm going to sleep at 2 a.m. as opposed to, 11:30.
Right.
And now as a byproduct, like my sex life sucks. I'm not thinking as clear. I have increased joint pain because I'm drinking caffeine and coffee and sugary beverages. So my body's actually dehydrated as opposed to getting natural salts and getting my omega-3s and trying to eat real food and shopping the perimeter of the grocery store where there's things that I actually know the ingredients. They're limited ingredients. But instead, people want, hey, I want convenience. Here's Uber Eats. Hey, I'm going to shop these things that are really convenient that have 75,000 ingredients that I don't know what half of them are. Right. But it says protein on it, it says gluten-free, it says sugar-free. So instead of thinking chemical shitstorm, I'm just going to take it.
Right.
And then it's like, artificial dyes. You think about fragrances. You think about skincare products. Nobody wants to do hard things anymore. We had Michael Easter on the show, and we talked about the comfort crisis. And it's like, man, like nobody wants to work for anything anymore. But you and I both know that a beautiful life is on the other side of some blood, sweat, and tears.
100%, man. To me, like it's such a crazy thing growing up in or at least living now in an environment where a lot of kids are given a lot of things, right? Like a lot of people are coming from mass amounts of wealth. And you see like this like scaling unhappiness as they get into their middle adulthood where they haven't really had to accomplish anything because everything was handed to them. And I think that like there's so much growth and like such an important part of like knowing who you are and not having an identity crisis when you're 30 to 40 years old, just trying to get through the fire and grind it out. That's so important to me, Yeah. What I have struggled with, man, in terms of all the wellness stuff is like, where does it become an obsession? Where do you find the balance? And like, how do you not go crazy with all the information that's thrown at us? Yeah. Like at some point it's like we can't wear any clothes. We can't eat anything. Like there's two extremes. It's like, who cares?
No,
you're going to die.
You make a phenomenal point.
The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level.
And basically what I say to people is, I hated this statement when my mom was alive because she said it every day. And now I fucking love it. And she always used to say, do your best and forget the rest. And it's like, you know what? Like, I'm going to set, I really like the AMRAP mentality stolen from Jason Khalipa. As many rounds or reps as possible in a certain time domain.
Okay.
So when I think about like a morning routine, it's like, dude, like every now and then, I'm gonna throw some. I like Chobani coffee creamer. I'm gonna throw some of that in my coffee. Like, it's awesome. And then most of the time, I'll have it black. That's cool.
Okay.
I want morning sunlight. I want hydration before I get my coffee. That's pretty simple stuff. Yeah. It's also mostly free. And so it's like, I don't know. I think those things are great. I'm fortunate to put a sauna and cold plunge at my house. And so it's like, on days when I need an attitude adjustment or I feel like I need to get my brain cooking for a podcast pretty quick, I'll get in the cold plunge for a little bit. And it used to be this egotistical, I have to be in here for 3 minutes because I'm tough. And now it's kind of like, what do I need today? What's the dosage that I need? But kind of like Alex Hormozy says, like, I'm not so obsessed with this morning routine where I have to do it or I'm going to have a bad day. And he always says, like, hey, this country was made by people no smarter than you and I that smoked cigarettes and ate bacon for breakfast. Like, let's pause. Like, the biohacking shit, it's dope. Yeah. I'm into it. It's awesome. But at some point, you're like, dude, I don't know if it's actually grass-fed, grass-finished. Half the time, I don't even know what that means. Gluten-free, like, maybe that's good. Maybe it was gluten-free at the end of its growth period. I don't know how much glyphosate or pesticides were sprayed on these things. Like, in the world that we live in, there's a lot that's out of our control. Yeah. So to answer your question, like, I literally think I want to do my best. I want to try my best to eat real food, treat people appropriately, live a life of service, connect as primally and authentically to things that are not necessarily man-made, that come from nature. And then outside of that, man, like, exercise and sleep. Those two things, I think, like, they're not just given to you in pill form. Right. And they're things that can make your life so much better, make you more resilient. I think if you can take care of those things consistently and microdose exercise and sleep as often as you can across 365 days, these other things are exactly what we described. They're biohacking, they're supplements. They're not everything. And I think most people are like stepping over hundreds to pick up pennies. Yeah. You're like, hey, give me the supplement, or let me do the physical therapy. Let me get the gear. And it's like, no, do you sleep 8 hours a night? Exactly. They miss the small fruit, right? Like the low hanging fruit. Yeah. Just do the bare minimum to start with, and then stress about your Whoop score and all of your sleep quality, another time, at least once you're in that state. For me, like, I just went, I have a cold plunge as well at the sauna. I got into that routine where it's like every morning 3 a.m. or 3 minutes, right when you wake up. And got to the point, dude, where I was getting like heart palpitations. Yeah. Because I was like working from 8 to 8 one day, going to bed at like 12:31 because I was like wanted some hours of the day that wasn't at work. So you go to bed late and you're waking up at 6 to get to work at 7. First thing you do is out of a deep sleep, go and jump into a cold plunge. It's a quick way to have a heart attack. Yeah. So and there's positives and negatives, right? Like sometimes it's like, hey, that's good. I needed that today. And then other times you become like a slave to the system, and you have to realize, like, sauna and cold plunge, they are stress. Your body doesn't always know the difference between, perceived good stress or bad stress. And, you building a business, fostering a relationship, actually caring about your patients means you take stuff on from them. Yeah. Empathetically, you're trying to problem solve. You're thinking all day long, not just about their problems, but your own. You're thinking about payroll, keeping the lights on. You're thinking about demographic. You're thinking about date plans. You're thinking about your family. You're thinking about your friends. You're a human, just like we alluded to with professional athletes. Right. And what happens as a healthcare practitioner, sometimes people come in, it's like, Kyle, everything's wrong. Yeah. Parking was bad. Traffic is bad. Blah. Let me dump all this on you, not realizing that, like, dude, you got shit that you're dealing with too. And like, you're there to serve, and you understand that you're, paid for a service. But let's like turn the nozzle down a little bit on that volume and like, right. And like breath work, sleep, and exercise. They're not really like talked about because it's like, oh yeah, that's free. Yeah, it's also a fucking cheat code to life. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Dude, that was the hardest thing for me early in my career, was like being able to step back and like break myself from the intensity of the patient's stress or pain or whatever it was they were dealing with, because I wanted to bring that on. I was like, I'm going to fix everybody that comes in here. I'm going to give them all, and what you realize is that maybe 50% of the patients really will do the work outside. Maybe more if you really motivate them, But you can't hold yourself to the stress of those people not getting better, because let's just say, you see them twice a week. That's 2 hours of the week at the most. What are they doing for the remainder of the time that you can't influence? Is that hitting a vape pen? Like, are they chimming cigars or cigarettes? Are they drinking a lot, which they wouldn't correlate with pain the next day for some reason? And they come to me screaming about all the things that are going wrong with them. I'm like trying to kind of create a barrier or boundary.
And that actually, in fact, it impacted my relationships pretty negatively when I first started working.
Me too, man.
Very challenging to decipher how to give energy and then have energy when you get home at 8 o'clock at night for your significant other or your
Dude,
family.
it's so well said. Like, I still struggle with that because there are some days, man, where I care so much. And then other days, like, I've told by numerous mentors, like, hey, man, create a little bit more buffers, put your phone on airplane mode at a certain time, like, create that space. But it's like, if you didn't create those expectations up front, people then are like, oh, you don't care about me anymore.
Right.
You're just focused on business or money or growing your relationship or whatever else, or merch or whatever else you've got added to the business. It's not really conceptualized of like part of this journey is actual personal accountability. Right. And it's like, it's co-piloting their journey. Hey, I'm going to hold your hand as we hike up to the top of the mountain.
Right.
But it's like, there's going to be moments where I'm going to let go. And you have to keep going, knowing that I'm on your team,
right?
But I can't do it for you,
right?
And we've created this psychology. I know the baby boomer generation, my father specifically, really believed like what the media was saying, like, oh, you just pay this money, and that pill is going to save you, or that surgery is going to save you, or that procedure or protocol is going to save you. To echo Mel Robbins, nobody's coming, man.
No one's coming, right?
Right? Like, we can support. But it's like, my question for you in this little rant is, it's hard when you actually care to just be the role of support, because you can feel that like they want more, but you giving more doesn't actually help.
It's kind of like the whole fostering independence, but stopping that by enabling people. And I think you can extrapolate that to like, people giving away money to kids who aren't working as hard. But I think with my patients specifically, the hard part is getting from that initial evaluation where I'm like gung-ho, getting all their history about their information and in their past life, talking about all the things that they're grieving with, but then transitioning later through the plan of care to be like, hey, like, you actually are okay doing that step up by yourself. I'll be 10 feet away. You know what I mean? And it's an interesting kind of a journey to see people go through. But I think the biggest thing is, as a practitioner in healthcare, is you just have to reduce apprehension every step of the way so that they can get to that next level of independence, if that makes sense.
It's very well said. And what's coming to mind, it's kind of a fucked up thought, but our job is to get to the point where we let people go.
Yes. Discharge them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And what's crazy is healthcare is supposed to be that. But it's like, hey, I'm going to give you this thing that fixes that problem and also satisfies the thing between your ears. But it comes with all these side effects that are going to actually make you more sick. So when we fix that problem,
we'll get to the next one.
It's going to unlock another one, and you're going to stay in this loophole for a long time. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. It's a great point, dude. You're just cyclically impacting disease on like a continuum, but never really getting rid of it. And so the RFK thing, I think that's such a cool shift in the way that we politically look at healthcare. Because like, we've never looked at healthcare as a preventative option. We've only looked at it as a treatment for symptoms.
It's reactive.
I mean, I don't know how much the financial aspect of medicine has in our ability to actually want to eradicate disease. Like, I'm not convinced we don't have some pretty high level cures to a lot of diseases that are currently impacting our lives.
We're seeing it. I mean, Mel Gibson and a few others have talked about just the benefits of ibogaine for addiction, ivermectin for cancer treatment. I've spoken to the founder of Wizard Sciences around just the benefits of a ketogenic diet and carbon-60 serum, because cancer can't live in a ketogenic diet or a fasted state. It has to thrive off of glucose and sugar. Why is that not talked about? It's like, hey, straight to chemo. And like, as a product of two parents that have passed away from it, it's like, it didn't fucking work.
Yeah.
It actually, the chemo killed them faster than the cancer would have. Because going back to what you and I talked about, it's not just about the physical, it's about the psychological and how it demoralizes your hope and your faith in, I just don't want to live this life anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you look at the diabetes.org website, and the first recommendation on breakfast is orange juice.
Oh, geez. Huge insulin spike.
There might be eggs, there might be toast, there might be cereal. It's like, well, what? That doesn't make any sense. And then I think just you don't have an educational awareness of this whole loop of things going on. But
I mean, going back to our education, though, as far as like nutrition, you look at the fucking food pyramid.
Yeah.
It's like grains, and it's like, dude, that's insulin spike. That's man-made. There's pesticides on that. Like, okay, maybe that's great for a marathon runner or a high-level CrossFitter or somebody that's like huge capacity and needs that glycogen.
Exactly.
But it's like, we've had Dr. Sean Baker on numerous times talking about the carnivore diet and ketogenic diet. And I'm not saying that's perfect for everybody, but it's a tool. I mean, Jordan Peterson talked about how it helped his daughter get rid of all kinds of disease. And I would argue that it's because it's a limited ingredient diet. And you're not just getting all the bullshit that causes the inflammatory markers in the large intestine. What are your thoughts on diet prescription?
I mean, the elimination diets I think are really helpful in figuring out what might be a cause in the driver of symptoms. What I see firsthand is people have it. I think it's way more prevalent than we think, but I think almost everybody has a gluten intolerance to a degree. And I think that in some people that creates a systemic joint inflammation and joint pain globally. So I have people walk in my practice like, oh, my elbow hurts, my wrist hurts, my knees hurt, my back hurts. I'm like, what did you eat yesterday? I'm like, oh, I had this pasta, a couple other things. I'm like, well, that's interesting because the last 3 times you've done that, you've also had those symptoms, but you didn't have the symptoms. So for me, like I definitely have some background in nutrition and obviously some physiological sciences, but what I try and tell people to do is let's eliminate the stuff that we can control, which we know is causing you problems. Like from an evidence standpoint, we know late night sugars and white flour, enriched flour, those things are not good for us at all. But then you kind of go down this other paradigm of like, what if we're taking away the things they like to do and look forward to? Like if you tell somebody you can't go to your favorite restaurant with your husband on your date because you can't eat that because that might influence your knee pain, there's that balance in like, where do you tincture with that?
Well said.
But I don't know, man. I think there's so much information out there, like the Carnivore MD, right? You've got, and then you got the Liver King, and then you got the other extremes where it's like, don't eat meat because you got to be vegan, and you can't have any animal model protein. Like the Game Changers Netflix documentary. Did you see that one at all?
Yeah, we saw it.
And that was completely portrayed as being like this entirely thing you need to do, but it turns out that actually wasn't the best evidence. So for me, I really just try and dial it back into here's the basic sciences of what you're eating and what you need to be doing. Here's your state of injury. And if you're in a protein deficit or you're in a caloric deficit, if you're an athlete especially, you're not going to get better. If you're in a high school, if you're a college basketball player and you're practicing 5 days a week, you got games once or twice a week, and you're in a caloric deficit and you're under protein, dude, it's surprising how many of these athletes don't eat well at all, and especially in the high school realm. Granted, like in high school, how often are you worried about your composition? You know what I mean? Like we always kind of had abs. Like you weren't worried about gaining weight necessarily, but just how that influences performance is big time.
Yeah, dude, I tremendously underate. I always joked with my parents after I left high school, just like, man, I would go to school with like peanut butter jelly sandwich, some lunch tickets, and maybe a bag of chips. Maybe be able to like grab a Gatorade at school, but like other than that, most of the time I didn't eat breakfast. Sometimes I'd have like a chocolate milk and like a bean burrito at some point at school. Like I wasn't eating well at all. I didn't even think about nutrition. I was like, mentally, I could will myself through this. It's 115 degrees in the San Fernando Valley at that point. The floor is never like sticky. Like it's just dust everywhere. You're like licking your hands and wiping your shoes nonstop. The water came from a hose or from like a bathroom shower that smelled like piss. I joke that I'm like, dude, my immune system got so good. Going to a public school, like same high school as Ice Cube and Eazy-E, fights every day, race riots once a week. You go into the bathroom and it's like one person's having sex in this stall, the other person's like smoking weed in that stall. And it's just like, it was a clusterfuck, but guess what? So's life. Right? And it's like, I absolutely believe in like a limited diet, but I also believe, Dr. Andy Galpin and I talked about this. You can't be so focused on like staying away from gluten and all these things, because then he calls it, then you become precious. Then the one time you have a Girl Scout cookie, you break out in a rash. Or you get, crazy IBS, or you have a little bit of dairy, and all of a sudden you have a lactose intolerance. You have diarrhea for 2 days. It's like, I definitely think that like that 80-20 is really important of like, try to eat real food. I really like the Mark Sisson prescription from the Primal Blueprint. I think he does a really good job of like kind of simplifying it, of like, similar to like the CrossFit prescription. Eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. That can be refined. But then the entrepreneurial model, find what works and do more of it. I could sit here and say, according to this study or that study, it's like, okay, but who's funding that study? And now looking back at things, it's like, all right, most people right now are pushing back against that. Like most of these studies are funded by big pharma or somebody with an agenda to try to sell a product. It's like, I think eating real food, the integration of vegetables, especially for athletes, like if you're going to have a little bit of rice, have white rice. I've written articles on that. Tons of other people have. Brown rice is probably not the best for the digestive tract.
I agree. And
it's also like sold because it's lower on the glycemic index, but it's like it has lectins and some other things that cause inflammation within the large intestine. I think sweet potatoes can be a really good fuel source along with squash.
Yeah.
Dairy is probably case dependent on the individual. I think taking an intake a little bit of like what your parents really liked when you were in the womb, if you have that privilege, is a really cool way to kind of figure it out. But dude, there's so much conflicting knowledge now. Like we're not in a world of minimal knowledge.
No.
We're in a world of like, how do I take action with all this conflicting advice? Like, what the fuck do I do?
Yeah, like an abundance of information thrown at you every time you scroll down your phone. And oftentimes they're the opposite of the last post. Yeah. And then you're just sitting there, and the average person doesn't have a health or nutrition background. So they're looking at all these things. And because biohacking, you got Brian Johnson doing the whole blueprint thing, and you got all these people doing all these things trying to influence their perception of that they need to now do it. And it's kind of a tricky place to be. And the other side of that, man, is like the financial incentives these companies have to push their products and to create a narrative is not something that we should be overlooked. Yeah. Like, you know, you talk about people who have an entire website about a certain product and then their entire personality is that product. There has to be a correlating reason as to why they're that way. Most people aren't just inherently trying to sell things to people for no reason.
Yeah. Patrick Bet-David talks about if you want to find the truth, just follow the money. Yeah. And like, I mean, we go back to the COVID pandemic. It's like, okay, there's everybody's conflicting evidence on that. At the end of the day, there's a vaccine that was pushed very quickly. It's proven to have tremendous side effects. But more importantly, innocent people don't actually get pardoned. Right. Why was Fauci pardoned all of a sudden? Why all of a sudden is the Pfizer stock going up? What's going on with Johnson & Johnson? Why are there correlations between money and then, if a hospital diagnoses somebody with COVID, they get a ventilator, there's a financial incentive for that. Now, what did I say in the beginning? If you predict incentive, you can predict behavior. And it's like, I'm all for being open-minded and saying, hey, I'm no expert here. I want to press pause and I want to seek to understand and gather more information. But it's like so many people, when people are pushing things too hard, for all of you listening, I'm not saying this is a left or right comment, but it's like when people are pushing things too hard, press pause for a second and just like kind of observe, see what's going on. The analogy that I would give is if Kyle and I are in a fight and we jump into a pool and I'm hitting and he's hitting and I can't see him, he can't see me. There's lack of clarity. There's freaking splashing. There's bubbles, things going on. But if you and I just wait, just kind of exhale, we're both going to float to the bottom of the pool. There's going to be clarity. I'm going to see him. He's going to see me. And it's like, now we can appropriately problem solve. And that's kind of how I think about nutrition. It's how I think about inflammation. It's like in the midst of emotional chaos, all the information coming in, rah, you're on WebMD in the middle of the night because you got pain. It's like, pause.
Did you see that video? I forgot what senator or what state the senator was from, but he had a hamburger in his mouth and he was telling people that if you get the vaccine, you get a burger and fries from Burger King.
Oh, jeez.
So basically, either Jack in the Box or Burger King, it was one of the fast food chains, was pushing an incentive to get the vaccine, and the incentive was to get a hamburger and fries. And he's on TV, like dipping the fries in ketchup, like eating it, like, see, look at this delicious fries. And I was like, this is an absolute movie. Like, this can't be real. Wow. Like, we're incentivizing that, like, middle of America people that don't know enough about this realm to go get their favorite food, so go get the shot first. Like, what is that?
That's crazy. I would have been more inclined to get the shot if it was like, hey, this could be helpful and beneficial. We don't really know yet. Yeah. I think the most beautiful thing that creates buy-in for me when I go to a practitioner or I'm seeking help or advice is I don't know. Yeah. But we're going to find out together. Yeah. Like, let's problem solve this together. I'm like, dang, you got my back. I got your back. Like, I know my body better than you ever will. So I'm going to tell you all these things. You have this whole historical reference and knowledge and experience that I don't have. Let's actually combine forces. Yeah. The answer is this beautiful concoction in the messy middle. And I think, like, sometimes that side's like, I'm the hierarchy. I know best. You're screwed up for a reason. It's like these reasons, these variables, like, you don't know about.
Dude, yeah. Having humility when you don't know an answer to something is a big reason to get people to buy in with you.
For sure.
Because you're admitting, hey, look, I've never really seen this condition. This is a very odd presentation, but we're going to do everything we can to dial it in and see what we can tease out and figure out this together, like you said. Yeah.
That's not always the best sale, though. Which sucks.
No, it's not. But I think that if you go to a practitioner, like, like mid first sentence, you're talking about their history, like, elbow pain, that's got to be this, and like they just write off the rest of your history, be like, well, let me finish. That's not what I think that happens a lot of times too. You go to an urgent care or doctor's office, and it's like 5 seconds of history, strep throat, see ya. It's like, actually, that was Epstein-Barr virus and a couple of like mono, not strep throat, you know, just because we didn't take that time to dive in.
It's so interesting because it's case dependent on the person on how that's received. Like I prefer like the actual, like, hey, let's figure this out together. Everything's not everything. It's not like it's this. It's like it could be a few different things. Let's explore it together. But some people, like, especially in the trusting culture of like the baby boomer generation, like, oh, you're a doctor, you have that name,
You better know this.
you have this knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm gonna trust you.
Yeah.
And I think the world's really changing now in relation to that. There's a lot of pushback to higher level education. You know, you look at doctors now and they're learning so much about big pharma and legalities that there's not that much about like bedside care, how to palpate somebody appropriately and show that you care and have an understanding of anatomy. It's more so just like answers rather than storytelling and context, which typically is more important. It's like the peek behind the curtain.
Oh yeah. I mean, bedside manner, man, is so important. Like, have you been under, I mean, you had a couple of bad elbow injuries, like you dealt with people, like that initial reaction to how they are perceiving your injury is influential on how you'll get better, like massively.
Yeah.
I've had patients go to doctor's offices or physicians and they're so brief, like, oh yeah, your spine's that of an 80-year-old. And they come to me being like, he told me I have a spine of an 80-year-old. I'm only 40. And he told me never to squat again. You're like, how do I get around this? You know?
Yeah. So many people, the thing that's holding them back is the story they tell themselves. And that story is impacted by the experts and the people that they cross paths with. And so I think you're hitting the nail on the head there. But to dive back into your story a little bit, man, like I really want to talk about when the jersey comes off. Yeah. Right? Like you and I have this basketball background. There's this thought process of like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, oh, I'm going to be a pro basketball player. And you were fucking good. Like, it's not just like you were like sort of okay. Like you were good. For sure. So it's like, at what point did you kind of have that shift of narrative? Was it an injury? Was it acceptance? Was it conversations with close friends to determine your path now? Yeah. Like when the jersey came off and you're finishing up this really well-renowned like basketball career, like how did you navigate that?
Good question, man. It's so funny you asked that because it's come full circle to me now working with high school athletes in basketball season. But, you know, it was definitely an identity crisis where you're getting to that point where you're having to decide, am I going to be a business major? Am I going to be a kinesiology major? Because unlike you, man, I'm not above 6 feet and I never had a chance to be a professional basketball player. So I really had to figure it out. And coming from the economic background I came from, like I was really on my own since I was 17. So it was like, okay, you're not going to be an athlete because A, you're not going to make money. You can't pay for school without money. What are you going to do? And so it was kind of like a bizarre shift where I kind of resented basketball. But I was like 21-ish. I think I was just transferring to Northridge from Moore Park College. I played 3 years there or 2 years there. And authoritative coaching and just way too much workload. It became like a job. And it was just like such a stress. It was another stressor to an already really stressful situation. My parents had lost their house. You know, my sister and I were living in an apartment by ourselves. We made up resumes on a waiting application to be waiters and servers at this restaurant just to figure it out. And during that process, I like totally lost my identity as a basketball player and as an athlete. It was more towards like, okay, you're a student and now you're a bartender. And like I went to this like stage where I was trying to be like a commercial actor for like a year or so. It was a complete a big shift, man. And I got away from the game for like 7 or 8 years. I just didn't touch it. I was over it. Shoot around.
What people don't realize is that like at that time, you and I prided ourselves on being student athletes. Like we actually went to class. It wasn't just paper classes and whatnot that we've seen kind of gone viral a little bit. And that's not a knock on the people that are incredibly good in the sport and, you know, have their ticket in some way, shape, or form. But it's just like, that's 2 full-time jobs of being a student at a high level, trying to open doors in the world of healthcare and wellness, while simultaneously, you've got weight room, film study, locker room, 5 hours of practice, prehab, rehab, cold plunge, study hall. Like your entire calendar is booked as a student athlete in college.
Yeah. You have 0 free time.
Yeah.
You got to add 2 jobs onto that and then try and with physical therapy and sciences, like you have to get A's. You're not getting A's in your prereqs. You're not getting into grad school. So then you wasted 4 years for no reason if you're not pursuing that degree, right? So yeah, man, it was a big shift. It was very interesting to kind of like totally just disembark that entire basketball identity, which has now come back full circle, like literally last year, just being involved with J. Sarah's basketball team and a few of the high schools that I work with, and then being on the court, like on the bench with those guys, traveling to the games, it's just such an interesting full circle moment where like I know what this is like. And I was talking to them a while ago. I was like, guys, you got to cherish this moment. This is your senior season. This is not going to come back. And I think having that perspective, man, is such a trippy thing. Because like when we were 18, like we were looking at like the guys like 35, being like, oh, this guy's washed up. He's old. He can't even run. Well, I can never be that guy when you're 35. And you're like, now you're on the court with those guys, being like, damn, I used to be able to do a lot more things with my body. And that acceptance, man, it's a tricky place to navigate. You know, but at the same time, it's kind of like lighting a fire under me now to like start training like I used to and get on the court like 3 times a week just to get shots up and give extra dribbling moves. Because I think just that mental release is huge. Like
it goes back to like, how did you problem solve when the world felt confusing when you were a kid?
Right.
It's like, you know, it was learning this move. It was trying to emulate, you know, Allen Iverson's crossover. It was trying to emulate, you know, the jump shot of Larry Bird, trying to emulate the no-look pass from Magic. And when the world got messy, it was like, hey, we got a ball and we got this court and we got movement and we got, honestly, imagination.
Yeah.
Right? Like that childlike mindset that like a lot of kids have lost now because they're married to the laptop or the iPad. It's like, dude, I remember as a kid, like none of my shoes, like all of them had scrapes in them. Like all my pants or shorts had like ruffled up things. I was dirty all the time. Like I wasn't playing basketball, I was like throwing a baseball with a friend, like playing football at the park, or like playing capture the flag or hide and seek, or attempting to be a BMXer or razor scooter guy one day. And it was just like different planes of motion. It was constantly playing. I didn't even think of it as like, oh, I'm training for basketball. It was like, I just want to go play. Yeah. And like, I just graduated from the N64 era. So I was like, I don't want to play GoldenEye and Super Smash Brothers anymore. So let's go fuck around outside and find out.
Exactly. Man. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'd be like out in my driveway, like thinking I was Mike Bibby in like the 2011 finals or whatever year it was with him and Weber. Just like pretending like you're that guy coming off a screen, hitting a jumper out the elbow or whatever, you know? But it's kind of a come to moment. I mean, like I said, I'm at the court maybe once or twice a week now just to get the mental release of seeing the ball go in. We talked about that on Instagram a little bit a while ago, but just like there's so much to be said about getting yourself back to a state that you're very familiar with. Like I'm sure you're the same way, but like you're very familiar with dribbling a basketball. Right when the basketball comes in your hands, like you know how to flow with it, you know? Yeah. And I think that kind of can get you to your flow mental state to a degree.
Yeah, and I think what happens is as we become adults, we become really rigid within the rat race of like, it becomes a very outcome oriented, like, hey, get the degree, get the job, meet the girl, make the money, get the picket fence. Like it becomes this very like choppy and like you become very linear of like strict pull-ups, back squat, deadlift, bench. I don't have time for anything else. Yeah. Life isn't that way, man. Life is an ocean. It's flowy. Basketball is flowy. And like when you become so rigid within things, you forget to realize that like life is these different spokes within the wheel. And like there's different buckets. And sometimes you're going to need business bucket to be full. You're going to need the J. Sarah basketball bucket to be full. You need your emotional bucket to be full. Sometimes all that needs to go away. And you just need some personal time. You need time with your lady, time with your family. Then you're like, oh shit, I need my financial fitness. Then you're like, oh, I haven't adventured or gone on vacation. Well, I need to go hit that now. And it's like, that makes the plate a lot more full than back in the day. It's like, just get A's and go to practice. Right. Yeah. You know, life definitely gets a lot more complex for sure. Where did you feel that your athletic edge started to dull? Like, was there an age or a moment where, you know, you had mentioned that to me briefly on Instagram, like, hey, what's it like when you're a step slower than you used to be? Yeah. Or the handle starts to be a little bit weird, or like the jumper starts to feel a little foreign. Yeah. You're like, dude, this was like me back in the day. I could hit this with my eyes closed, and now you're like, whoa, this is odd.
You know, man, so I'm lucky because my job is demonstrating exercise all day. I'm always moving. I'm doing different plans. I'm doing a deep squat half the day. Like there's so many different variables of motion I have to get into. So if anything, I'm very grateful for that because my mobility has gotten better over the years, actually. Yeah,
but me too, man. My mobility was terrible with basketball.
Yeah, like I had no flexibility in my hips. Looking now, like I can easily split. Like it's just because you're in positions throughout the day for time. Yeah. Like low load, long duration type thing, right? But for me, the other day, I was trying to show this young kid how to do a single leg box jump. And like I landed and I was like, oh my gosh, I think my knee might have just gone out. Like it didn't actually, but like, you know how easy it would normally be just to spring up? Yeah. And I was like, oh man, is this really happening right now? Yeah. But you know, you take yourself back and start beating yourself up. You're like, well, you've worked for 12 hours today and you've been on your feet for 9 of them. You've demonstrated this 30 times already, so maybe it's just a fatigue thing. But maybe you also haven't trained this way. You haven't actually done high-level plyometrics in a year. And so you kind of have to give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
But if anything, man, it's motivating to me to start getting back into a routine of like developing more athleticism and like getting after it. It's probably hard for you to relate to because you've been in that realm for a long time. Like you've been sweating.
Been in that realm for a long time, but I'd also say, man, like with the injuries and also just psychologically, man, when you lose your parents, you start to think about your own mortality.
Yeah. And
you think, okay, do people actually give a shit about how many threes I made, or do they care about how I made them feel in the moment as they were in pursuit of their peak expression? And so for me, like, my why just changed. And more specifically, I think from 2018, I was still kind of like attached to like, oh, my performance is my identity. That's how I get love in the world. Like every time you go to like a holiday party, it used to be like, hey man, like we saw you on ESPN, or like, hey, we saw you in basketball or CrossFit or whatever. And then it's like, hey, what do you do now? Right. And you're like, whoa, that's heavy. I never really thought about it that way. And it took me like 4 or 5 years, man, to kind of get to the point where it's like, hey, I help people. Yeah. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, I use fitness as a vehicle and podcasting and storytelling to help people seek edges and guide them towards their peak expression. They're like, whoa, that's really cool. Yeah. And I was like, thanks, because I just came up with it on the spot, and it just like, it felt right. And I don't know, I felt like there used to be like an ego attached to it. Like, I used to be somebody. Yeah. And now I'm like, actually, I'm very comfortable just being Bryce. And I think there's an ego deconstruction that comes from loss, that comes from, you know what, like, I took basketball and CrossFit as far as I could. Like, you know, I wasn't the best, I wasn't the worst, but made some cool relationships and learned some cool things. And now we can take those things and kind of pay them forward. Yeah. And I don't know, I'm very thankful for it now. I definitely think there was moments where it was like, let me be validated and seen. And now I'm just kind of like, I don't know, it was what it was, and just acceptance and familiarity.
Just maturity, man. I think you're looking at things from a different perspective. It's like, hey, I've done those things. I'm proud of what I did. I did my best. Forget the rest, like you said, right? Yeah. But for me, man, like the gratitude I get and the sense of accomplishment I get in my day-to-day is my new identity, I guess. Yeah. Like at this point, I'm looking at myself as like, hey, I'm an avenue to helping people improve their lives, and I'm going to use the educational path that I took to get here to my best of my ability, right? And then leveraging all the emotional experiences and the diversity and the challenges you had growing up and relating them to the conversations that are in front of you. So to me, like I bartended for 6 years through my undergrad and master's program, part of my doctorate, just to pay bills. But that was arguably the most valuable experience I've ever had. I interacted with thousands of different people on a daily basis, you know, on a weekly basis.
Free is the way to be. Life beats us up a bit and causes some bumps and bruises, but that doesn't mean we have to stay on the sidelines. This is why we've partnered with Kinyon Labs. Get back to doing what you love with this incredible portable device designed to get you back in the game. Kinyon is on a mission to move people from pain to possible with their top-rated red light therapy and laser solution, which tackles inflammation along with muscle and joint pain quickly and effectively. What I love is that it's portable and rechargeable, making it easy to actually incorporate into my everyday life consistently. It's small and lightweight, so you can throw it in your gym bag or work bag, or even an overnighter. Kinyon's lasers and LED combo make this cutting-edge device extremely versatile for use with general aches and pains, as well as chronic back pain, arthritis, post-surgery recovery, endometriosis, and more. This has been an amazing tool keeping my elbows and knees pain-free for pressing, pulling, and squatting in the gym. Great tools like the Move Plus give me the freedom and flexibility to continue living life on my terms without limitations. There are a lot of reasons why over 15,000 people are using this device and rating it 4.7 stars and above. Head on over to kinyon.io and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to begin your pain-free journey.
What people don't realize is like one of the number one things you can do is learn how to manage people, learn how to manage your own emotions, carry a conversation, be more interested than interesting. That is like the recipe for being a great bartender and getting tips.
Right. Well, but also how does that extrapolate to medicine? Because like you talk about bedside manner, like if you can relate or connect with anyone based on a random conversation you've had, Like you see talking about you're from Montana. Oh my gosh, I was talking to so and so. This he was living in Montana. He had this experience. Do you happen to go there too? Oh, you did. And immediately you have this like connection of random conversations that are flowing out of nowhere. But you only had that because of the history of that conversation you had back in the day with that person.
Yeah, it's so true, man. I didn't even realize it when we started the podcast back in like 2020, 2021. Through coaching, I coach 5 to 8 people typically at once. They're all on their own individual program design, but it's like each one is like a different podcast.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
I was doing that for over a decade, and it was just like, then getting into this space, I was like, oh, this is really fun. I get like one-on-one time with somebody. It's amazing.
Right. It's easy. Yeah. To me, man, like it's interesting watching people who apply to jobs that we offer and have the hardest time having a conversation with anyone. Nervous as hell in the interview, very like rigid, very hard just having an open greeting conversation with somebody. And that is like such a big part of being part of a coach or being a physical therapist or being in medicine, is like, can you connect with someone without being so just unnatural, I guess,
Totally. In a social media culture where, you've got the guys that are flexing and the abs and they're selling themselves based on image. You've got the girls with the camera kind of facing their butt and like really trying to like sexually kind of sell body composition and, certain things. I've come to realize that fitness is less about like flexing and more about functioning and more about like who do you become in the pursuit of doing hard things? Like we talked about before, it doesn't always sell. But in my opinion, it's really important because that's what you take with you in every facet of life. And eventually that look or those abs are kind of going to change. Not necessarily that they'll go away, but they'll change, and your why changes. And I say often that, like, in my competitive career, I didn't have fitness. Fitness had me. I was owned by it. I didn't have life. I didn't have experiences. I was never really present. And then I learned that later on. What are your thoughts on that concept of just like how you use your fitness now? And realizing that like basketball or sport is life for some of your patients, but then you're also trying to create transformational skills into their next chapter of life. Because, some of these guys aren't going to make it. Yeah,
man, it's a great question, man. I think you have to find the barrier to entry in these individuals. Like what is their goals? What do they like to do? How do we program around that? And then just kind of run with letting them have some freedoms in that regard. But I think the problem is, man, is that like I have patients coming to me with like, oh, I bought this program online from so-and-so and now my knees are killing me. And I'm like, well, what made you buy that? And like, well, he has this many followers. And you're like, all right. And then you look at the content and you're like, well, this is like, if you have end stage patellofemoral, arthritic changes, like you're probably not going to go deep knees over toes squat for high volume. Probably not going to be a great idea right away. And so like navigating that paradigm of like authenticity, like actual, genuine, true, factual data versus the followers and the glamour that comes with the pictures has been tricky to do. Like I've had many people trying to convince me to go on TikTok and create one of those TikTok accounts where you're like, POV, this exercise fixed my elbow. But immediately you're down regulating your entire profession because no one exercise is going to fix your elbow.
Yeah. I'm in alignment with you, man. I struggle with that a lot because it feels like you're lying.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel good. Like I understand it probably help with marketing. I'd probably have way more money in my bank account. And I'm not saying that people that do it are lying. Like they're probably like creating interest and buy-in. And they do have big followings. And it's interesting. It's almost like, man, I don't really feel like going to that party. Hey, Kyle, did you get invited to that? Oh, yeah, me too. Oh, you're going? Cool, I'm going.
Right.
And it's like, oh, more people are going to that. They're followed by these people who I know. Oh, that's buy-in right away. Right. And it's kind of like, that's why you do this with your business too. I love discovery calls, man. And like, yeah, they take a lot of time. They definitely don't fill my bank account. But fuck, man, you really get to know people. And you're like, how can I help? And there's been times where like it's been an amazing relationship. And there's been other times where like, hey, I'm not the person for you.
Yeah.
This is not the right fit. And, here are 3 other practitioners that maybe you can go see, or, here's, let me know once you go down your journey, you're ready to kind of have this authentic truth thrown your way.
Yeah.
How have you kind of navigated that? And like social media is so fascinating, but it's also so annoying at the same time.
It's the devil's sword, right? It's like it's a necessary evil because I get probably 5 to 10 patients a week from Instagram, whether it be online or whether it be in person. So you kind of have to be present on that platform, but you can't let it encompass your entire creativity.
It's a tool.
It's a tool, and it's got to be like, it can't be your entire way of thinking. But what I'm trying to create on Instagram right now actually is like a level of mystique. I'm actually not trying to explain everything. I kind of want people to see the page and be like, what is that? I'm curious. Let's cheat. Let's inquire about it. Because I think I
want that too. Like I love showing like people's journeys. I don't like necessarily getting into the weeds of like, here's why we did this, here's why we did that. Because I also feel like it's a little bit of a HIPAA violation. Like I want to preserve the integrity of the client. And they don't need their whole story shared online. Like they can know that they're coming in, they're bettering themselves, they're being consistent. Cool. We can have a follow-up private conversation later.
Right. And I think people like to question what's the unknown. They like to see things like and dive into it themselves. Like, oh, what is that? And that's why I think branding is such a cool conversation to talk about, because like we talk about in physical therapy, it's like so-and-so physical therapy, or like, let's say spine and sport physical therapy, like just traditional names. But like you talk about Viore or Nike or like, random one-word companies that don't even associate with that product. And it creates like kind of buy-in and creates curiosity. It creates just like kind of a way of looking at that brand completely differently from the profession. And then you can kind of add avenues to that brand itself too, which I think is kind of cool.
The way I think about it in relation to yours, that's why we created ALLSMITH, forged, not found. In the sense of like, you're either in adversity, just left it, or you're approaching it. That could be mental, physical, emotional, financial. It doesn't place you in a box. And I think what's really cool about Nike, like just do it. It's like we can sit here and ruminate about all kinds of thoughts and play in the idea factory, but who's taking action? Right. And like to echo Brene Brown, like the beauty and like the thing that really gets us excited as the consumer is watching the man or the woman in the arena. Right. And like now you're doing that. You're done with school. You have an amazing founder story, right? Like went through some adversity. Parents lost your house. You're bartending to pay the bills. You're living with your sister, trying to figure out some of these things. And people don't think of it that way. They just think, oh, good looking dude, takes care of himself, physical therapy guy, really knowledgeable. He's probably crushing it. They don't really know the story behind the scenes. And now with Rogan and Huberman and Chris Williamson really making like long form context important. It's like, the clip can kind of like get you interested. But then it's like actually look to understand. Williamson made 10 years of podcasts before Modern Wisdom actually started to hit it off. Nobody knows that. It takes 10 years to become an overnight success, to echo Lionel Messi. And it's like, that level of consistency is not sexy. The Rocky clip is 5 minutes, but it took 15 years to get to that. And you're in that right now. You're actually caring about these kids. And what I'm curious about is like, you're obviously giving to them what you wish you had back then a little bit. But it's like you're not just treating their injuries and teaching them about like prehab. You're mentoring their mindset.
Yeah, man, that's a really cool way to put it, actually. So I worked at an outpatient clinic for almost 6 years. During that time, I was like, I'm gonna get everyone's phone number. I'm gonna do my best to develop a relationship with every single patient I see, because when I leave this clinic, I'm gonna try and create my own spot, and hopefully all these people will be a network of people I can draw from. And I was fortunate enough to find a location in Dana Point that's pretty rad. We built out a performance studio. It's got all the high-tech equipment you could ever ask for. And the thought process in this company was like, how do we take all these overuse injuries in these youth sports that were all over our practice and create a system where you can prevent them from happening? Because, we work with a lot of baseball and basketball players, but a lot of baseball kids are in Orange County. The Trinity League with Mater Dei, J. Sarah, Olu, like that's the best high school baseball league in the country by far. And so you have all these young kids that are training at 6th, 7th, 8th graders trying to be on the high school teams in that Trinity League, because those are the schools that get looked at. Those are the schools that get MLB contracts, et cetera. And man, honestly, when I was a sophomore in high school, I had stress fractures in L1 through L4. Pars fractures, spondylolisthesis, when one of your vertebrae shifts forward and it becomes unstable. Happens a lot of times in landing athletes, too much compressing forces into extension. Gymnasts happen to really see a high prevalence of that, because this repetitive hyperextension causes the compression of the facet joints. And so
That's brutal.
Yeah, it was horrible, man. So I went to, I got some imaging done. They put me in a rigid brace for 4 months, sophomore year of high school. During that time, though, I had met and trained with a guy very similar to myself now, who is a strength and conditioning coach for the Denver Broncos, named Ryan Capretta, Proctor Sports Performance, who basically exposed me to all the training I'm doing now at that time. And I came back like being able to easily grab rim and like almost dunk a basketball as a sophomore, where before, very limited athleticism. So I was like, how do I extrapolate this concept to the kids now that I'm seeing in such a way that it like blends into their routines?
That's cool.
And so it's basically a subscription model where it's like kids come in once or twice a week with a preventative, like for baseball, it's like you're doing your rotator cuff exercises for sure. You're doing all the mobility for your hips and core rotational stuff that you have the prereqs to throw without torquing your elbow off. Talking about UCL injuries, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then, like, can we influence that to a degree where they don't have the injury, which then screws them psychologically massively, right? I have 2 kids right now with significant UCL sprains and probable growth plate issues that their entire well-being mentally is toast, man. Their entire identity is a baseball pitcher. They got tournaments every weekend. Their parents, like, have the pitch count apps. Like, they're all so dialed in with all the data. And, you know, it's sad to see that decline in their mental function just from the state of injury. So that was the inspiration of what we're doing there. Is to, how do we prevent these youth kids from going down that rabbit hole? Can we create a situation where now they're more prepared for high school and maybe adulthood?
Yeah.
You know?
I love that, man. What I'm hearing is you see, you know, 14, 15-year-old Kyle in these kids. You're giving them the advice that you wish you had. And every pro athlete that I've spoken to, man, like, you got to kind of be all gas, no brakes heading into your NFL or NBA or MLB combine. But once you get drafted, man, the best ability is actually availability. If you're battling an injury, you can't actually be available to perform. And you, even if you pitch, you know, a little bit slower or maybe a slightly less pitch count, that contract can be forever life-changing.
Massive.
And it's so interesting because previously it probably would have been tough to create buy-in around like, hey, come in and do external rotations and posture support and isometric carries and bottoms-up carries and understand scap function. But now it's like, hey, man, you're feeling that UCL pain. We have a numerical value of pitch count. Let's not just be married to the data, but let's also understand how you're feeling. If you're feeling that at 14 to 18 years old, like,
it's a problem.
we got a problem later.
Big time. Yeah.
And so I love that you're kind of bringing it full circle. Have you found it challenging because of, you know, I'm going to call it AAU culture, which is what you and I know. You got to perform. You got to be in front of the scouts. I mean, there's tournaments in Vegas every weekend. The parents are driving them all over the place, as we talked about before.
Yeah.
How do you create buy-in with these kids when it's like, you know, the measurable is how many points did I score? How many strikeouts did I get? How many touchdowns did I score? And then it's just like, man, you go home and you're like, feel like crap. You got to do school. You're trying to like chase girls in Instagram DMs and like figure out like where you fit as a human being in high school.
Right. The buy-in for us actually stems initially from the quantitative aspect of it, because we put people on force plates, we do all the dynamometry, and we do like a full athlete profile first.
Nice.
And so you're looking at, hey, this is eccentric braking speed on a CMJ jump. And so like, these are the NBA values. This is your value. You want to get to here, we have to increase this to this, or else you're probably not going to be able to stop anywhere near as fast as you need to get that jumper off.
And also, just to bookmark you there, right there, what did Riddick talk about with Luka? It's not the biggest, the fastest, or the strongest, but Luka's ability to change speed and change direction is the best in the world.
Dude, Andre Miller, remember that point guard?
Yep.
He was the slowest guy of mankind, but he was so good at stopping and starting again.
Yep.
And that's a function of athleticism, and you can train that. Like there's exercises where you literally work on deceleration and then acceleration the other way massively, right? And so that's like the first part, and that's also how we kind of get parents to buy in, because we're not trying to sell somebody on bullshit. Like, we're really not. We're like, hey, this is your kid's capacity. These are the studies, and then the raw information that show this kid's external rotation to internal rotation strength is not at this ratio. They're likely to develop a UCL injury or a labral tear. It's not my opinion. And these are the quantitative strength tests. They're pushing an isometric dynamometry machine. That's the number. I can't do anything to fabricate it, you know? And then you tangibly show progress over time, and that correlates with improved performance and decreased pain. Well, it's like, you complete the loop on that. But then you tie in like the psychological aspect of it, because we have group training too. So like, we have groups of 2 to 6 kids that come at a time, and the camaraderie they have at the same time.
That's cool.
It's like a positive reinforcement loop, right? They look forward to coming to the workout because they got 5 of their homies, and they're getting the endorphins, the dopamine release from workouts, right? And then I have like a mini hoop in there. I put like a mini basketball hoop, like it's a 12-inch rim.
Nice.
So you can actually shoot like have you seen those like the indoor bouncy ball, indoor basketballs? They don't make any noise.
Yeah.
Those are sick, by the way. I wish we had this when we were young. But like just like free throw competitions at the end of a round, or like, because I kind of write it as like hit workouts type thing.
Yeah.
And just something to look forward to every time and create that positive reinforcement loop.
And also just like, coordination.
Yeah.
Being able to focus, having an element of like fun competition where there's not necessarily like a fear-based like punishment if you don't perform
You're
well.
not sprinting because you missed that. You know, it's like, yeah.
Totally. I think that's really cool that you're kind of using science, using things that create tangible, measurable values. You're showing improvements over the course of time. And then you're also making it fun and collaborative. So it's not just like do the work, do the thing, and then get the fuck out of my office.
Right.
That sucks.
Yeah, I think that was the interesting challenge initially, was like, how do I get out of this complete science, rigid medical mindset and like be a human and with these kids again? And like, it's okay to throw a couple crossover drills in the workouts or something random just to have fun with it. And I think once you start to make, you know, you can kind of make fun of these kids and joke around with them to another degree. I mean, not like maliciously, right? But like you add that personality to it and it kind of completes the loop in the whole deal.
Yeah, man.
But yeah.
I'm pumped to see what you're doing. I think it's really cool, and I think it's only the beginning. But we talked also briefly offline around that's the fun part of the job, right? That's the innovation, that's the connection, that's the problem solving, that's input, taking in their data, and then finding a process to then determine an output.
Right.
The not so fun part of the job is payroll, sales, you know, connecting with a health savings account or insurance model, whether it exists or not in physical therapy is case dependent on the place. You know, online sales, Facebook ads, budgeting, your schedule, right? Like right now, like, you know, there's scalability and then there's trading time for money.
100%.
And it's very difficult to kind of play that game, which is why you need to tinker in the online space. And then there's all the admin side of things. Right? There's running an LLC or an S Corp. There's payroll. There's legalities. There's maintenance of your licensure.
Yeah.
That stuff's not fun. It's not really talked about either.
No, man.
And it's stuff that lives rent-free in your headspace. How do you navigate that?
It was really challenging when I first started this business, man, to not be on my phone or be encapsulated by the business stress all times. Like my fiance and I went through, not a hard, I mean, she's the best. She's like the best woman in the world because she's so patient and giving and understanding. But from her perspective, she's like, you are on the phone at 7 a.m. taking patient calls and you're here till 9 p.m. answering emails and 10 p.m. You know, it was all day. And I think a lot of times in entrepreneurship and like starting your own practice, like people don't realize the amount of effort it goes into aside from patient care to just keep the lights on, to keep things running. I was very fortunate, man, because when I opened in August, like I had a full schedule from day one. And it was because of the funnel I brought in from the last places and the network of community I had already. So I wasn't really stressed about getting people in the door as much as maybe new practitioners are. It was more so like, how do I create a brand that I can scale to different avenues? How do I get as much reach as I can and provide a high quality service? And then shit, I'm only one person. I got to hire an equally qualified person like myself. And I got to figure out who's going to answer the phone calls while I'm with people all day. And it was an interesting place to navigate, man. But I'm very fortunate to have two great employees that work for me. Very qualified people, and they do a great job. But the trickiest part about this entire business is like, how do you step away and like not still be there to a degree?
Work on the business rather than always in it.
Yeah, like even if you're like at home, like how do you not even worry about, oh, did I lock that door's locked? Yeah, but does that machine need replaced? Like how do you step away entirely and just allow yourself to complete separation? And I think like the biggest like comfort for me came as like I did this once. Like I could, if this failed, I could do it again. Like if that building burned down, I could figure out a way to carry that again. Because
I think it's cognition of like whatever problem lands on your lap, you're going to be able to figure it out. Yeah, because you've done it before. Yeah, and you also know how to ask for help now. You've experienced failure. You've also experienced success, and they're both equally as valuable. You probably learn more from the failure, but you need the success in order to have that trickle effect of hope and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing that, man. Sometimes people come on podcasts and it's just like, oh, it was all green, easy peasy. It's like, you're full of shit.
Yeah, 100% full of shit. It's been a long journey, man. Ever since I've known you back in college at Northridge, like the dream was to eventually have a physical therapy practice. You think about the amount of years it took to get to that point. It's like, whoa, what the heck? Why did that take so long? And then you look back and be like, it had to take that long. Yeah. I had to see that many people at another provider's office so that I can have that network of people to now funnel. And dude, I've not done one Google ad, not one Instagram ad, no marketing other than 2 community events. And we have a book schedule and getting an average of 10 new people a week.
It's amazing.
And it's just from caring and like being present.
And word of mouth. I mean, it just shows that your patients really recognize the value that you're providing. It also shows that like when you squeeze the juice out of those oranges eventually,
Yeah, right.
and you have a little bit of a team to help support you and give you the ability to kind of zoom out a little bit where you can now be a teacher of other practitioners.
Yeah.
It gives you the bandwidth and the hope that like as you get older, there's a growth trajectory.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being a slave to the system forever and feeling like you're going to have to be a manual and physical PT until you're 95 years old.
And that's the challenge, Ben, is like when you think about people want to come to your practice to see you. But then you have to create that avenue of like, you know, it's more just like and these are things I'm learning, right? You learn things we learn through business school and through just experiences and being in the right network and the right groups online, things like that. How do you create an environment where there's not a change in service from one practitioner to the next? And you can still be the face of it. You can walk around, shake hands, and make people happy. But like, how do you create that full loop where it's a full business that can be scalable and replicated again? And then you can step back and be like, okay, we did it.
It's the art of business and the art of coaching. And I think part of that is learning to employ and surround yourself with people that can echo the vision, the mission, and all those things. You mentioned business school, man, right? Like, you learn a lot of the X's and O's of physical therapy, anatomy, physiology, psychology, nutrition, a lot of things that have to do with the body.
Yeah.
It doesn't help you get people in the doors.
No, man.
And so you made the choice to embark on some continuing education and pursue your MBA.
Yeah.
Where did that thought ideology come from?
My grandpa is from Israel. He's a first generation immigrant. He came here with nothing and created a solid little empire for himself through education. He's a PhD in mechanical engineering. And he ended up getting a law degree and doing some other cool stuff in economics. But he basically said, look, I will help fund your master's program in business. I'll never give you $1 for anything else, but I'll help fund your master's program because I know it'll help you succeed with what you're doing now. And I was like, well, I could do it online. I could do it at my own pace. It makes sense to find those information points and the various talking points and using your instructors as an avenue to run ideas back to and to fine tune your plans. And to me, it just made sense at the time. I'm still quite a few ways away from finishing it, but the main thing is like if you go to medical school, man, they teach you how to be a practitioner and not how to keep numbers in check or anything. And it becomes really less enjoyable to be a practitioner when you're not making any money. And it's like, to me, it just made sense to pursue that and to get as much information as I could to then be the best version of myself, if that makes sense.
No, it's really cool. It's also like an acumen, right? Like you go into a military place and they have all these, you know, different words and phrases and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And then you go into a CrossFit gym, you got EMOM and AMRAP and all these different terminologies and this different jargon and business culture has that too. Yeah. And eventually, you know, it leads to financial culture of if you're going to take on investment, you're going to speak with health insurance companies. Yeah. Being able to elevate and upgrade your language. Yeah. Definitely just as an additional tool in the toolbox where you just like, you acquire a seat at the table and now the information of all these different acronyms is making sense. Right. As opposed to you kind of being in the clouds. Like I remember when I first got into space, man, I'd like sit there on my notes function, like write this down, write that down. And I'd like look them all up later and I'm like, oh, that's what they meant. And then honestly, it helped me develop a filter of like, oh, that person just like speaks really big words to try to intimidate people like me. And then that person actually is really successful. I saw their profile on LinkedIn. I saw all the things that they're doing and they dumbed it down so it's digestible for a third grader, for someone like myself that's a brand new entry-level entrepreneur. Yeah. And it just like helped me understand that like language is like hieroglyphics. Like how we speak to people is not necessarily, it doesn't have to be like a one size fits all. I think metaphors and analogies and the way you speak to an entrepreneur that's coming in with back pain from sitting all day and has very tight hip flexors and a rounded thoracic spine is way different than the way you speak to the 17-year-old kid from J. Sarah or modern day that's trying to get a scholarship. Right. That guy might be a little bit more broy and playful. This guy over here might be more professional and a little bit more stringent because he's got 15 less minutes and needs to get home to be dad and answer 17 calls. So it's like being able to understand and articulate that version of hieroglyphics, I think is really important. Yeah,
and you get respect and kind of acknowledgement from the people in that space too. And they actually have more faith in what you're doing as a practitioner, if that makes sense. I'm very fortunate in where I am right now where we might take on some investors to build a potential basketball gym with a weight training facility in South County. Nice. Nothing like that exists down there. They're up in Irvine and Costa Mesa. Yeah. To me, man, what a cool environment to be like by the beach with a rad basketball facility training. Like there's no reason as to why that can't
that'd be
happen.
incredible, man. I know Kobe used to train at like UC Irvine and stuff,
Yeah.
but I don't know that that's, like you said, available in like Dana Point,
There's
Laguna
nothing,
area.
South County, San Clemente, Dana Point, even Laguna Beach. Like, there's nothing down there. There's not a hoop in sight
Yeah.
other than the high schools.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
and to me, like to complete the loop of like having a basketball court and a high level strength program, like the machinery and all the equipment inside the same facility would be like the dream.
Yeah, that's incredible, man.
And so like having those conversations with investors and actually feeling like you're respected in that conversation is a big part of it, you know.
Badass, dude. So
So,
is
yeah.
that what's to come? Is that what's coming?
Hopefully that's to come, man. I'm looking at warehouses right now. We'll see. I'm in the lease till at least August right now. We actually just built out more space. I'm like, am I going to take on another job right now? But, you know, with getting into Jay Sayre's basketball team and getting into some of the high schools around here and just seeing that, like, there's an avenue where pro NBA players will come here to train and live in the summertime.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what's his name?
Like Klay Thompson's down here all the time.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler's got a house here in San Diego.
Yep. Zach LaVine was down here a while ago too. So to me, like if you can create the house, people will come.
Mm-hmm.
But if you create the environment and you have the expertise and you have all the stuff there, why not? You know, it's just because it's basketball's a game we know very well. We resonate with it. We can kind of speak the language. We can move the same way, and I think you can relate to hoopers to a certain degree.
Totally.
Like for me, talking to a tennis player about his swing is not as relatable as it is talking about a basketball player about his knee injury. You know, and I think there's a lot of patient
I'm
buy-in.
pumped for you, and there's definitely a network of people that we can connect you with.
Yeah.
We've had some NBA shooting coaches on. We've had Mike G on that we've talked to you
Yeah.
about, and it's like, I mean, those guys are always looking for a facility too, because they're
100%.
constantly traveling with these guys, you know, in season.
Mm-hmm.
Having a home base and a one-stop shop could be incredibly valuable, and
Yeah.
also somebody that like gets it.
Yeah.
It's a little different
Right.
when you have like, you know, scientific Joe Schmo that has a
Yeah.
bodybuilding background. Very valuable,
Yeah.
but also just not quite the same.
Not the same. Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Kyle, where can people find you, man?
On Instagram, dr.kyledjordan. And then we're creating a new brand right now. So hopefully I'll come back with you with some more information by the time this releases or give you some more information via website. But yeah, just creating a new company right now too, man. So it's cool.
That's really
Yeah.
exciting stuff. Brand development, like you said, is really cool.
Yeah.
You've got the look, you've got the face, you've got the knowledge, you've got the client base. Is there any bit of advice or a statement that you would like to maybe, like if somebody was driving on the 5 North headed up to LA from San Diego and they wanted to kind of get that elevator pitch about you to kind of know, like, who is this guy? What does he do? How do I connect to him?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's something that maybe you would put on a billboard that they could take away from our conversation today?
Man, I would say something along the lines of reducing your experience with last physical therapy in terms of here's a brand new way to look at approaching your body with high quality care, with evidence-based science, bridging that gap between end stage rehab into sports performance. And then how do we integrate that into regenerative medicine? Because, you know, I'm integrating wellness injections and PRPs or peptides and all sorts of other integrative stem cell therapies and things like that into our practice. So really what I do, man, it's a complete the loop from exercise to injury to wellness.
Nice, man.
And, yeah.
We'll have to do another episode
Yeah.
and chat about like peptides and regenerative medicine, because
Yes.
we've had a few naturopathic doctors on and we've talked about the famous BPC 157.
Mhm.
We've talked about CJC 1295 times ipamorelin, tesamorelin for some people.
Mhm.
And, you know, they had some issues with the FDA approval for a while. I know Rogan's talked about them a lot. So they've kind of floated to the surface, along with Brigham Bueller from Ways to
Yeah.
Well. We've had Dr. Jason Fan on from Live Natural.
All right.
And things have been a little controversial in that space
Mhm.
because the FDA is the only really fucking approved Ozempic and semaglutide,
Yeah.
which is great for weight loss,
Mm-hmm.
but is technically a drug that's used for patients that are, you know, insulin sensitive or having issues with diabetes,
Mm-hmm.
which means that it comes with an onslaught of side effects.
Daytime.
We're seeing that with pancreatitis. We're seeing that with different forms of heart disease and things
Mhm.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
So look into it before you guys just jump on the bandwagon of Ozempic. Like
Yeah.
there's some positives, but there's also a ton of negatives. So be very careful, but let's definitely connect for a supplemental episode to kind of educate, motivate, and inspire people on those things. Cause the way they're advertised, man, is not everything.
No, not at all. Yeah, happy to do that, man. That'd be great. I'd be looking forward to it. Appreciate
Cool,
you.
man. Guys, if you enjoyed my conversation today with Dr. Kyle Olandt, please rate, review, and subscribe. And as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Until next time.